friends. Welcome back to Crime Adjacent Season 8, the case of the Michigan Nightstalker. Here's where things stand. There had been another murder that very night, or morning, I suppose. While I was having a midnight standoff with Tim Meeks, who I caught red-handed in my cabin that morning, Sunday, September 29, 2024, the clown creeper, or someone just like him, had broken into the cabin of another single woman on Walloon Lake. Another realtor, just like Yuki and Allison and Ebony. And this time, there were no missing shoes, no signs of a mask or a horn or a tan coat, just the body of a woman, Joanne McElhaney, who had been strangled to death with a blue and white sailing rope, just like the one Tim Meeks had on him, just like the one I had used that very morning to tie him up. Is that how the clown creeper avoided capture and managed to strike seemingly at will in cabin after cabin from Traverse to Walloon to Petoskey? Because there were two of them? Here's the story. But first, if you're liking this show, please drop a 5-star like and review on your favorite app. It helps more than you know. And don't forget to pop on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/crimeadjacent, for live streams and background info about this show. From San Francisco, this is Crime Adjacent, the never-ending true crime story told weekly. I'm Chase Patrick. How do you get information out of someone who absolutely, positively doesn't want to give it? Like in an ordinary situation. They're already like, no, I'm not telling you anything. But what if you raise the stakes? What if, say, you want them to tell you something, but that something will land them in prison for life? How do you get them to talk? Will they talk? Would you? Would you say anything at all if you knew there was a chance it could land you in prison? Enter the interrogation. Because this story involves one of the calmest, coolest, and most gentle and kink-filled interrogations I have ever seen. And I've seen a lot of interrogations thanks to Nikki and, well, this podcast and all these cases. I've listened to the tapes and watched the videos. You probably have too. This has always been a deep interest of mine. Interrogations and that pull between staying quiet and not incriminating yourself and the police who are trying to get you to confess, often to crimes you maybe didn't even commit. I've been subject to this weird social dance in locked boxes during my time as a street kid in San Francisco, and then again as an adult, frequently, thanks to this very podcast. I've become quite the aficionado of various police techniques used to make you confess, and I'm revealing a lot of them here, right now, because they were all glaringly apparent in the masterclass Sheriff Press put on to nail Meeks and get to the bottom of this case. But first, let me walk you through a few of these approaches so you can see them in action later. Or hey, maybe you'll find yourself in a locked room with a detective blocking your exit. This might come in handy. That is, if you don't immediately start screaming, lawyer, 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 which you absolutely should. So this is inside info straight from the FBI to other law enforcement agencies. In one of its 2019 FBI internal bulletin articles for continuing education, 2 special agents detailed various interrogation techniques that have been used by police for quite literally generations. Sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. If you've been arrested or questioned for a crime and locked in an interrogation room with detectives, odds are you are subject to the Reid technique, R-E-I-D, after John Reid from way back in the 1950s. And yes, this is still very much in use today. It basically consists of 3 parts. 1, before you're even questioned, the detectives do a deep dive on all the facts of the case. They want to know the details about the crime and about you before it all begins. Common sense, okay? I'm with you on this one. Then, once the talking begins, they try their best to build rapport, not just to make you comfortable and get you talking as everyone suspects, but to see what your baseline behaviors are, how you react to things, so that later, once the stressful questioning begins, they can gauge how you react, whether they think you're telling the truth or not, basically. This becomes important later, according to this internal bulletin article. The third part, this is basically the hard part. The accusations, the threats, the idea that they know you did it. So why don't you just do everyone a favor and tell them why? In this process, the detectives try their best to give you an out, or a minimizing strategy designed to make it seem perfectly reasonable for you to have committed a crime. You had to. You couldn't help it. They understand. Just tell us more. Tell us why. The thing is, this technique has huge flaws and has been known to produce a lot of false confessions. From the presumption of overwhelming guilt to the time involved in the minimization strategies, sometimes people confess to crimes they never committed because, well, police minimized it so much that it seemed like a reasonable thing to confess to just to get out of the room, to go home. Only, instead of going home, of course, they usually just wind up in jail, thanks to the confession. Added to all this is the fact that police are just horrible judges of whether someone is lying or not. Keep that in mind for future use. Pop culture and police themselves think they can really tell and that they know when someone is lying. They train for it. But the FBI agents in this article point to studies showing random college students had better chances of detecting lies than police detectives, despite police thinking they were far better at it, a classic Dunning-Kruger effect, but with actual lives on the line. So, because of all this, all the flaws, other interrogation techniques were devised over the years. In the UK, the peace model has shown to reduce false confessions by trying to find all the facts together rather than working solely towards a confession, the article says. This method doesn't rely on threats or false promises or minimization strategies, and it's been shown to actually lead to the same level of confessions and fewer false ones. But if you don't like these approaches, there's the cognitive approach, which I think is basically the shut up and let the suspects talk approach. Truly, let them talk 80% of the time, and eventually they talk themselves into knots and can't remember all their lies and ultimately confess. What I'm trying to get at is there are lots of methods to choose from when it comes to interrogating a suspect, and police are still trying to figure out what works best, especially in a time when DNA evidence can undo false confessions. I was thinking about all this that Sunday morning because I wondered what this FBI article would say about casual interrogations in someone's lakefront cabin kitchen, because that is exactly what Sheriff Press did that morning. Honestly, it was a masterclass in questioning that led to the real culprit behind all these crimes. And it wasn't who we thought. Not at all. When Sheriff Press arrived at my cabin that morning, Tim Meeks was still in the bedroom, tied up. Press listened to the story of how I captured him red-handed in my cabin. She asked a few questions, and then she did that thing she does. She clapped her hands together, suddenly, real hard, rubbing them together a few times. "Okay," she sighed, "let's get to the bottom of this." Inside the cabin, Press exchanged my makeshift rope ties with handcuffs. I should note here that yes, she was mad at me, not only for this plan, but also using his ropes as binding. This was evidence, she said. It was important for linking Meeks not just to other cabin creepings, but to the murders of Yuki Sugita and Allison Barnes, and then that very morning to the murder of Joanne McElhaney, who worked in the same office as Allison and Ebony. That was the strange thing about this case. It must be obvious by this point. I'm sure you've noticed. The clown creeper was rubbing feet of Claire and Aubrey and Aitana, and he even attempted it with me, but remember the cabin was booked under the fake name of Cassandra Royal. All of the women who were murdered, however, were realtors. Yuki, a few weeks ago in Traverse, Allison in Petoskey, and now, that morning, Joanne McElhaney, who also worked for Coffee Realty Company. Why? That's what Press wanted to get at. Why realtors? Why murder these women with the same connection to a single realty company? But she started slowly in that good cop way she has of putting people at ease. In the kitchen, as we waited for the crime scene forensic team to finish up over at Joanne's cabin and make their way to mine, or Cassandra's, Press started slowly with Meeks. "What was the deal with feet?" she asked. "What do you get out of it?" Meeks shrugged. Press said, I'm into abs myself. We all have our kinks, I guess. I love a good ab, like Brad Pitt in Thelma and Louise." I tried not to laugh. This felt like the Reed technique in action. Build rapport, establish a baseline, then increase the pressure. I wondered if it would work. Meeks kept his head down at the table, avoiding eye contact. He was cagey, quiet. I was unsure how this would go. Press kept going, trying to build this rapport and establish the baseline and hopefully get him talking. Her gentle tone immediately reminded me of another famous interrogation in true crime. Chris Watts, that horrible family annihilator who murdered his wife and children so he could be done with them and move on to start a new family with the woman he was having an affair with. Long story short, after his lie detector test, they brought Watts into a cramped detective room. And this woman detective was right beside him, rubbing his back, talking to him gently, really making it seem like it was perfectly reasonable that he would murder his entire family, and golly, that must be so hard on him. It was minimizing inaction. There was no yelling or Hollywood fist-pounding. It was gentle and kind and soft, and it worked. Watts confessed to everything. I'm sure he thought they must have really understood him in that moment. It was a masterclass in doing whatever was needed to nab a confession. I'm honestly not sure if I have the stomach for it. Here, at the kitchen table in my cabin with Meeks that morning, Press was doing the same thing, and she knew exactly how to do it. At first, Meeks was steadfastly quiet. He didn't want to talk. He never, I should note, asked for a lawyer, even after Press read him his Miranda rights. From the looks of it, he didn't even seem to be paying attention, let alone cooperating or confessing. But a funny thing happened. Press just kept talking about movies and sexual kinks like Brad Pitt's abs. It seemed like the weirdest non sequitur in the world. No harsh questioning, no questions at all. It was bizarre. This dude was found with a clown mask, a rope, a tan coat, and a bag of shoes inside my cabin, and all Press wanted to do was talk about movie sex scenes, lots of them in graphic detail. Why? Soon it became apparent. The more she talked about her own sexual kinks, the more Meeks looked up and began to pay attention, like he was in a spell. At first he seemed unsure what was happening. I noticed he kept his head down but smiled a few times, revealing a row of broken top teeth. Why he needed a clown mask to scare people is beyond me. Sorry. After a little bit, he was really into it, looking up at Press, engaging. In fact, he soon asked her questions like, "Did you see From Dusk Till Dawn?" Press said no, shaking her head. "Tell me." This was suddenly less an interrogation and more a film class 101 discussion about feet and sex scenes from two preteen film buffs. It was so odd. But Meeks couldn't help himself at this point. He went on and on about how actress Salma Hayek does some type of striptease that involves feet. The Wolf of Wall Street, any Quentin Tarantino movie, 9.5 weeks, Meeks couldn't be stopped. It was foot scene after foot scene after foot scene. He couldn't shut up. At this point, if he was going to try to say he had no idea who was breaking into cabins to rub women's feet, he'd be hard-pressed to prove it wasn't him. I wondered if Press had moved on to the cognitive technique at this point. She had found a way to get him talking, and boy did he ever, more than 80% of the time for sure. She was quiet for a long time as he just kept talking and talking about feet. Honestly, we could have been at a bar just shooting the breeze, and I was so impressed that Press got this guy talking in 5 minutes, like she knew every single button to push. I learned later this was all Swanson, who had taken those profiling classes at the FBI. She had told Press that she could get Meeks talking in under 5 minutes if she only spoke about feet and sex. She was positive he would talk. And here he was. You couldn't stop him. She was right. Okay, cool. So he was talking. It clearly worked. But I sat there in the kitchen wondering, how do you segue from innocent enough movie talk to actually getting to the point. After all, Press didn't really need his thoughts on some director's foot fetish. She needed a confession. And Meeks gave one. At this point in the interrogation or conversation, whatever you want to call it, it was well established. Meeks was in defeat. No denying it. Press asked him, when did he first get the idea to rub people's feet? Not, mind you, break into cabins and assault women, just rub feet. Meeks shrugged. He said, I think about it all the time. Press asked, and how did you decide on Claire's cabin? Meeks looked up in confusion. Press said, the New York lady with the nice pumps. Meeks smiled bashfully. Oh yeah, that one. He paused. This was it. Would he incriminate himself, I wondered? Once I got her listing, knew she was alone, He paused. Press was fast. It's like she glommed onto some invisible tremble in the air and could easily tell the difference between what was said and what was implied. She cornered him quickly. So someone gives you this list of renters, right? And you see she's single and you decide, hey, what's the harm? Meeks nodded. Press went on quickly. She got what she wanted and put a mental pin in it. She leaned back and shrugged. I mean, it's just a simple foot rub, she said. Who wouldn't like that? I know I would. Meeks raised an eyebrow. You would? Sure. Who wouldn't? Nice little vacation, nice little foot rub. Honestly, that sounds sort of pleasant. People pay good money for that in fancy spas, and this is free? Sign me up. Meeks boosted himself up in his chair. He was excited now. I never thought about it that way, but you're right, he said. This was the Reed technique. No doubt. Press had got him talking, built a rapport, and then managed to focus him on the crimes, which she minimized to the point of him doing people favors, not committing horrible assaults and possible murders. But, did you catch that? She also got something incredibly important. An accomplice. Press circled back to this, casually. She said, so you get this list. Who gave that to you again? Meeks balked. Press quickly recovered. So you get this list and you go in. I mean, the doors were probably open. It's not like a real break-in or anything. It's just some innocent rubbing. No harm, no foul. But why Claire again? She seemed stressed. New York type. Looked like she needed a break. This was, most definitely, not the Claire I remember talking to on the dock that night. Smart as can be, cool as a cucumber, and just cool, like nonchalant, like, sorry, I sound like a schoolboy here, but she really was just cool, not some big city archetype of stuck-up C-suite executive like the image Meeks clearly created in his mind. Press said, and you thought you'd give her a little massage. What's the harm? In fact, it's probably doing her a favor, right? Right, Meeks said. She needed that, between you and me. Press nodded. I bet her feet felt real nice. I bet she really liked it. If I hadn't seen this with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. There was no out and out, did you do it or not? Just this presumption that he did, and that all Press really wanted to know was how nice it was. Meeks was clearly thinking about Claire's feet by this point, like he was in a trance. I bet, Press went on, that she would have invited you in if she was awake and asked you to do it. Meeks nodded. She liked it all right. Well, until she woke up. Maybe that was enough. I don't know. A jury would ultimately decide all this, is still deciding all this, in fact. Meek was indeed arrested for the series of break-ins and foot rubs, and his case is still pending before the courts. But he was never arrested for murder. Someone else would be blamed for all that. Someone, Meeks would tell Press that very morning at that very table, who was behind everything. Press spent less than an hour in that cabin eliciting confessions about Claire and Aitana and Aubrey. Meeks clearly said he got a list, somehow, from someone about the cabins rented by single women, and that he broke in, offered them the generous nighttime service of a free foot rub, and then stole their shoes to remember them by. Innocent. Kind, even. He got to rub some feet, and they got a nice massage out of the deal. Win-win, he and Press both agreed. I could practically feel the jail door clang shut on him at this point. But then, Press switched gears. She put on a befuddled face, like she was genuinely confused. So you rubbed the feet of Claire, and Aubrey, and Aitana. Meeks nodded. You went in, Press said, and rubbed their feet in the middle of the night, sort of innocent, right? Meeks nodded. Yes? But what I don't get, Press said, is why murder those other ones, those women, the realtors? Meeks wasn't excited or magnanimous any longer. He was confused. Murder? Press said, yes, of Yuki and Allison. It's the same rope you had on you just now. It was used on both women. We know it was you. You're on camera at Allison's with that tan coat. So why murder them instead of just rubbing their feet? I don't get it. Meeks shook his head swiveled to the tan coat, which was hanging over the chair right next to him. The rope was on the table in a plastic evidence bag. The mask, the bag of shoes. He had just confessed to breaking into cabins. We had just caught him in my own cabin, and now it was evident he was cornered. And the sheriff, she was trying to pin murders on him. Meeks was not the smartest boat on the lake, but he wised up quickly enough. Not me, he said, pushing himself away from the table, away from the rope, the coat, the mask, the shoes. No. He told me it would be fine. He had a list. A list? Press asked. Of the renters. He said no one would get hurt. Just grab their shoes, rub their feet if you want. Sure, go for it. They'd like it. But mostly, just scare them. That's what he said. That's what he said he wanted me to do. Scare them. Meeks pointed at the mask. That's why I used my old mask there. I'm not some freak, you know. I wish I didn't have to wear it. Again, Press didn't hammer for details right away. He was talking. She switched to the cognitive technique, I think. She was more or less quiet and let him do all the talking, let him get out as much as he could, and she'd fill in the gaps along the way, later. I've seen far too many interrogations where the detectives, usually a guy, have to prove that they're smart or in charge or whatever, and they step in and talk and just sidetrack everything, screw up the flow of valuable information. Press just shut up. By not saying a word, she had discovered Meeks had a list of renters, and she had discovered that this list provider had put Meeks up to all these break-ins. Scare them, he was told. She had to find this other guy who may be the murderer of Joanne McElhaney that very morning. Press said, and so this other guy, it's all his idea. Okay, that makes sense. I get it now. Not your fault. Meeks nodded. Not at all. It's just foot rubs, that's it. It's just a little fright, no big deal. He said to scare them and then just hide out. Don't let anyone see you. He pointed at the coat. He gave me all the list of cabins and he gave me that coat, said it was expensive, and he said he'd pay me $500 per cabin. No harm, no foul, right? Press agreed. I get it. Totally. Just foot rubs, no big deal. But Tim, someone murdered those women, and I'll be honest, it looks like you. Meeks shook his head. Press inched forward. This was part 3 of the Reed technique in action. Pressure. It was time. Come on, Meeks. You're a smart guy. We've got you at the same rope, the actual murder weapon. We know it's you, not some mysterious stranger with a list. Just tell us why. Meeks shook his head. Not me. Press inched forward even more. Sure, Meeks. That's what they all say. I'm going to arrest you now for the murder. I've got no other choice. Meeks was practically on his feet, spit spooling from his broken yellow mouth. You've got the wrong guy. We know it's you, Press said. He said to scare them. That's it, that's all. Press also rose to her feet. Tim Meeks, I'm going to arrest you for the murders of Yuki and Allison and Joanne. You need to come with me. Press made it sound so final, as if it was all over. This wasn't the Reed technique to grab a confession, although it sounded exactly like it. This was some weird intuitive hybrid designed to ratchet up the pressure until he gave a name. And he did. It would shock us all. It's him you want, not me. Him. Meeks was stammering now, shaking, scared. He was also pointing across the room, out of the window, and across the lake. It's him, Meeks said. That rich guy, that asshole. Press said, who? I'm not a murderer. Press repeated, who? I'm just into feet, I swear. Meeks was crying now, spit running down his chin. Press lowered her voice. Tell me who it is, and we'll get through this together, okay? It's just foot rubs. Meeks controlled his breathing. Press said, "It's just foot rubs, right? Not so bad." Meeks wiped his nose. Press said, "Just tell me who it is, honey." Meeks pointed again, across the lake. He said, "Michaels. That's his name. Roger Michaels. He paid me to do this. He gave me the list. It was him. He murdered those women." Roger Michaels, billionaire podcaster, local lake nuisance. Murderer? It might have seemed like some far-fetched story, as if Meeks was trying to pin his crimes on someone, anyone, and he thought of Michaels because we were in my cabin, quite literally across the lake from his. You could see his giant lake house across the rippling waters right now. But then again, Meeks was here, with me, under the bed when someone else murdered Joanne McElhaney that morning. Meeks couldn't possibly be in two places at the same time, committing two very different types of crimes. And then the list of renters. How did Meeks get those? Who would have access to those? A billionaire tech investor who maybe had access to all the back ends of these tech companies and their apps or whatever? And then there was the tan coat, the Keton. There's no way Meeks could afford that on his own as a seasonal laborer at the country club dock. Was Michaels really behind all this? But why? Next time on Crime Adjacent. Meeks was surprised, of course. They all are. In his mind, he had confessed to being nothing more than a makeshift day spa masseuse, a night nurse for general foot care. He'd given a name of his accomplice, the real bad guy in all this, not Meeks. So when Press led him out to the police cruiser and lowered his head into the back seat, he looked genuinely shocked, as if she had betrayed him somehow. "I gave you his name," Meeks said. Press nodded. "That's our next stop." Hey friends, keep an eye out for upcoming live shows. We'll be in Austin, Memphis, Detroit, Portland, Maine, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle. We're taking this show on the road in the coming weeks with new stories and new cases, possibly from your own hometown. So stay tuned. From San Francisco, this is Chase Patrick with a reminder. It's not crime, it's crime adjacent. I'll see you next week.